Okay. We are live. Elevate 7.0. No, I can't believe that we are 7 years into JMMB Elevate. Welcome, everybody. I am Carrie Ann Stimson, Group Chief Marketing Officer, JMMB Group, and we are here for Elevate 2025. Elevate 7.0 because yes, it is 7 years since we've been doing JMMB Elevate. For those of us who have been around for quite some time, you may even remember the very first Elevate. It would have been pre-COVID. Wow, we would have been pre-COVID right inside. I remember the Jamaica Pegasus was awesome. And then we had different iterations of it. We moved over to AC Hotel. Then the pandemic hit. We had to go online. I mean, it was just like, wow, we've really had a journey. But the message and the objective, the focus of why we do Elevate remains the same. It's about having that event at the start of a new year when most of us tend to be in goal setting mode. You know, we're kind of looking ahead and saying, hey, what it is do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? Where our finances are concerned. And JMMB Elevate remains that place with your financial institution, JMMB, that has your best interests at heart, where we come and give you all the information that you need to be able to set yourself up for financial success in the new year and beyond. And that has not changed. And we're going to keep doing that each and every single time. And this year is no different. You may pick up some differences in this year's Elevate. So we're going to reveal those to you as they become apparent. I know I've already gotten folks DMing me on my Instagram page saying, I miss in person. I know, right? In person really had a vibe. It had its own thing going on. But at the end of the day, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But certainly this format, what it does is it allows more people from not only across Jamaica, because Jamaica is not just Kingston, right? But it allows more people across Jamaica, across the Caribbean, because, you know, JMMB, we have operations across the Caribbean and indeed in the diaspora across the world to tune in from right where they are on a nice evening night where most people tend to be just at home or somewhere where they're able to tune in. And we are live with it. I see some folks joining us from different social media platforms. Of course, we're streaming live, so please reach out to your friends, family, co-workers, anybody who you think could use some great information to help set themselves up for financial success. Please have them come and join. Tell them we are now live. Of course, if it is you won't be able to stay for the whole live, that's okay. The session is being recorded. And in as much as it's being recorded, you can watch it whenever you like. You may miss something you want to rewatch, or there's something that you missed on our YouTube channel. It will be here just like all of the prior year Elevates. You can go onto our YouTube channel. This one will be no different. But still tell them to come live, because one of the benefits of the live is that you may get even the opportunity to have your questions answered. So if you're watching on YouTube or any of the other social platforms, please drop a hello and tell us, hey, I see some familiar names and not too familiar names. Of course, the first name I have to big up coming from YouTube is Carrie Ann James, because your name Carrie Ann, the most beautiful name in the world. I'm kidding. But you spell it the right way. I'm kidding too. But yes, hi, Carrie Ann. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Good night. We have Raquel. Hey, Raquel. Odini Sutherland. Welcome, Odini. Good night. Humble Boss, big up. I know that we have all these interesting tags that tend to join us for our lives. So we welcome you just the same. It's all good. Mikhail, Natalie, welcome. Hi, Odian. How are you? Welcome. We're happy to have you back too. Althea, Anicia, Michaelia, Diane, Alicia. Oh my goodness. Even the Jamaica Manufacturers Association. What? After all, why not? Everybody who has a financial goal, no matter who you are, how old you are, whether you have $1,000 in your pocket or you have $1 million, give me some of the million. But yeah, no matter who you are, this is for you. Hi, Janice, Olivia, Sanjay. Yes, please drop a hi in the chat, in the live chat. Please Tell us where you're watching us from, even if you're watching us from somewhere in the corporate area, Jamaica, outside of the corporate area, or if you're somewhere else in the world. For those of us who are in the colder temperatures, we're sending some warm Jamaican heat your way, because trust me, we get some heat today. I found today kind of warm. But yes, but let's just jump right into it. So tonight's topic is one of the hottest topics of Elevate, usually, because when people start to talk about investing or financial success, the word stocks and the whole matter of investing in stocks becomes a thing. Yes, I see more people coming in, and I know that we have our folks who want to learn more about investing in stocks watching from Manchester. Hello, hello. Hi, Christopher. Yes, let's get rich together. It is for everybody. Yes, we're here for everybody. Welcome. Hi, Maxine, watching from right here in Jamaica. I see little Tommy watching us from Maypen. Hello, Barbados. Hi, Marcia. How you doing? Yes, JMMB is in Barbados too. JMMB International just opened our office there last year, March. So welcome, welcome. Montego Bay in the house. Old Harbor, love it, love Massachusetts. Man, you must call up there. Hush, never mind. Never mind. We're sending some warmth your way. So right. Yes, please tell us where you're watching us from, and let's have a good time together. And yes, so investing in stocks is the topic for tonight, and we are going to be dropping some awesome nuggets. So whether you are inexperienced at investing in stocks and what that's all about, don't worry, we got you, because we're starting from the very definition of what a stock is, right? But also, if you're kind of familiar with investing in stocks, that's okay too, because we're going to get into some of the things you should be considering, or the strategies that you should be considering this year as you invest in stocks. So we have something for everybody. And as I say, call your friend, them, call your family, a co-worker, anybody who you know wants to achieve a financial goal in 2025 and beyond. This is the place, and we are going to have a great time. Now, the gentleman that I'm going to introduce is actually no stranger to these kinds of conversations, right? If you are a follower of the great Kalila Reynolds, hi Kalila, you would know that JMMB is one of the sponsors of her Taking Stock show that appears as a live stream every Tuesday night. And JMMB being a sponsor, from time to time, we do have our subject matter experts appearing on the show with Kalila talking about various topics. And so if you're a follower of Kalila, then he would be no stranger to you. But either way, you're going to get to meet him if you've never seen him before. And we're going to bring him up right now. He is one of our investment managers, and his name is Leovaughni Dillon. Hi, Leo. We call him Leo for short,
Okay.
so don't worry. How you doing?
I'm good. Good night, Karen.
Thank
Good
you
night to
so much for
viewers.
joining. Thank you so much for joining. We were
A
speaking in the
pleasure.
green room before we went live. And I know, Leo, there seems to be some kind of flu going around. Some people may be fighting it, and I know that it's trying to knock at your door. So we appreciate you coming on and still having this conversation. You know, guys, we
Yeah,
stay
man.
committed to the cause, and we appreciate when our team members show up. Nevertheless, so thanks, Leo. We appreciate you very much.
Yeah,
Welcome,
man.
welcome. And oh,
Okay.
Arizona. Hi, Antoinette. Watching from Arizona. We got a real international contingent in the house across Jamaica. So, yes, folks, we will be talking about investing in stocks. And as I said, no matter where you are in your investing in stocks journey, this conversation is for you. This session is being recorded, as I said earlier. And we're going to be dropping some wonderful nuggets. So please follow along. We have a list of questions here, which we believe are pretty standard. You know, we tend to score the social media and internet landscape to kind of have an idea of what are the conversations happening around investing in stocks. This is certainly, we're speaking for the Jamaican market now, just to be very, very clear. And we put together a list of questions that we thought folks would want to ask in a conversation like this. But at the same time, we also recognize that maybe you may have your own questions. So follow along with the conversations. If you have any questions, then feel free to drop them in the chat. That's not a problem. And if we have time at the end, then we will do our best to get to them as best as we can. But we do have some questions here lined up. So without further ado, let's hurry up and get started with Leo so he can go back to bed and take his vitamins and take a rest tonight. So he
Yeah.
can feel better soon.
Yeah.
So, yes, Sir
Mhm.
Leo. So, let us get started. So, as I said, we have a wide audience, Leo. We have from the beginners to the not so beginners in
Okay.
investing in stocks. So, with the first question that a lot of people would tend to ask in a conversation like this is, what are stocks? What is a stock, and why should we be investing in stocks?
All right. So first off, what a stock represents a ownership stake in a company, like a fraction of a ownership. So for example, if you have a company out there and it has 100 shares, you own 5 shares, then you own 5% of that company. So that's your stake in the company. Again, of course, if you own 60 of those shares, then you own 60% of the company. So that's all it really is. It just represents your ownership in a part of a company. Now, as you can understand, a lot of these entities, let's say some of the larger entities would have billions of shares outstanding. So, owning five shares in that company is very small, but it does represent an ownership stake in the company. Now, one of the primary reasons why you invest in a stock, as you can understand from that definition, is that it gets you exposure to that company. Because as you can understand, if you own 100% of the company, for argument's sake, then your ability to benefit from that company in terms of it generating earnings and paying dividends, all of that would accrue to you being 100% owner. As a fractional owner, even if it's 0.001%, you get what that stake represents to you, meaning everything that would accrue to you as an owner, whether it be the dividends, would accrue would go to you, even though you're a small owner, because you're still a owner in the company. So that's essentially what it represents. That basically your piece of the company, right? So that's the essence of it. So as you can understand, any one of those companies that you have a piece in, that's your piece. So that's essence of what a stock represents.
Okay, great. Thanks for that
Mhm.
explanation. Because a lot of us, and you know what, one of the most powerful things I find about when you talk about the whole thing of investing in stocks is that it's really empowering average people, people like me and you, to own parts
Yeah.
of great Jamaican and even non-Jamaican companies. You know
Company.
what I
Yeah.
mean? So, like when
Mhm.
you talk about awesome companies like a Grace Kennedy, you know, almost everybody grew up knowing about Grace Foods and all these
Mhm.
things. You can buy shares in a great company like Grace Kennedy or in a great company like JMMB, and you are
Mhm.
technically a part owner, however big or however
This is
small, in that
small. Yeah.
company, right? And how
Yes.
well that company performs, you could stand to gain from that, especially if the company decides to pay out dividends. But I know I'm getting into some juicy stuff,
Yes.
so I won't go any further
Mhm.
than that. But thanks for that explanation, Leo. So it's really buying a unit of what you would call ownership in a company. Now, to just extend to that, then there's this whole thing about the stock market, because a lot of people are like, okay, so I know what a stock is. So what is a stock market? And I think that certainly obviously would be the next logical question that folks would have. And how does this stock market thing work exactly?
Yeah, man. So what the stock market represents is basically a listing of several different securities that are publicly available. So as you mentioned, you for example have the Grace Kennedy, right, which is a listed entity. For example, you'd have the Jamaica Brothers, which is another listed entity. Now, what it does is that it basically has a collection of them. So it's kind of like a market in that sense. So you have different companies that are listed, and basically just a representation of all of those listed entities. So not every entity that you know, for example, is a listed entity. So there's a lot of large entities that you might know. Let's say a Caramed for argument's sake, or Caribbean Brothers, which is not a listed entity, right? But what the market represents is basically a collection of all of those listed entities that are available for investors to buy and sell way more freely than, of course, these more private entities. So that's really what it is, just a collection of securities, equities that persons can invest in. They can buy and sell as they choose. That's essentially what it is.
Okay, great. So, I mean,
Mm,
the summary to that is that when we talk about the stock market, when you think of even just a regular market, so like if we go to Carnation Market,
yeah.
you go, you see fruits, you see vegetables, other things being
Mm,
sold. It's the ability for buyers and sellers of goods and goods. Well, in the case of Carnation Market,
I
goods
get
to
it.
sell and then buy.
But,
In a stock market, it's similar, where it's a place where sellers of
yeah,
stocks, you could say, and
yeah.
buyers come to
Could be
exchange,
good.
buy and sell stocks from each other
Yeah,
in companies that have made their shares
yes,
available for
available.
sale to the public, right?
Yes.
And private companies are not listed on the stock
Available.
market.
Exactly.
So when you hear
Mm,
companies that were publicly listed, it means they're listed on the stock exchange, in this case, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and you can go and see which of those companies make their shares available for sale to the public, and then you
yes.
can purchase or sell your
Mm,
shares in those companies as you see fit. But
mm,
that question then though, because obviously, so we spoke about Carnation Market. I know I can
mm,
drive, park my car, clutch
mm,
my purse, go inside and find a vendor to buy
mm.
stuff from. In the stock market though, how do I purchase stocks on the stock market? When I must drive my car, go down to the Jamaica Stock Exchange and park and go inside, or how do I do that?
Well, the good thing is that it's way more convenient than that. Nowadays, of course, in the technology age, it's gotten a lot easier. So way back in the day when I joined the industry, way back in the day when I was in the industry, it was a little bit harder. You had to pick up the phone, you had to talk to your broker, and get a price, and it would have been a lot harder to for a small retail investor to invest because, as you can understand, um, you have a trader there. They can see the market in terms of where persons buying and selling stocks in the market. Everybody, especially smaller retail investors, would not necessarily have access to that trader. It's just the nature of the business, as you can understand. It's one person, several persons would be calling and talking. It would be difficult, right, for anybody, right? However, the beautiful thing nowadays is that everything is done online when it comes to these transactions. So of course, at JMMB, you can do the share purchasing and sale on money on the line, and of course, well, every broker basically nowadays have that ability for you to do these transactions online. So that's the beauty that you have nowadays. So it's a lot easier. However, you do have to open an account just like everything else. And there's an account that would be opened up at the Jamaica Stock Exchange, which would facilitate doing those transactions. So I mean, uh, overall, it's a lot easier. um, but it's just that you have to, just like anything else, open an account, talk to the advisor, you get all your account opening documents, put in, and then you're good to go. So the hassle is extremely low, the barrier is extremely low now because, again, everything is online, so you can actually see where you're buying and selling, enter your orders yourself. So that I'm quite sure a lot of the viewers probably familiar with that on Moneyline. So it's quite convenient. And I think it gives persons, again, across the diaspora, of course, in Jamaica, that access to be able to trade and buy and sell stocks as they see fit.
Thanks,
Mhm,
Leo. And that's a great explanation. And it's the first thing to note, again, just to summarize, is that anybody can purchase stocks in terms of its accessibility. So no, you don't need to get in your car and drive down to the Jamaica Stock
mhm,
Exchange to do it. What you would
mhm,
do is you would go to a broker like JMMB. Haha.
mhm,
You go to JMMB, because we
mhm.
are a broker, and as much as JMMB Group is a publicly listed company, what you can do is recognize that we are a broker, and being a broker, you would go and open an account. And even so, again, with JMMB, you don't need to drive down to JMMB if you don't want to. If you want to, we'd be happy to sit and chat with you and say hello. But
Mhm.
now you can go onto our website, jm.jmmb.com, and you see open an account feature, and then you can go in and follow the steps to open an account right online. All right.
Yeah.
And having opened the account, then you would set it up so that you would transfer money to get into your brokerage account. We call it our equity money market account. But Emma, as some of the long time JMB clients call it, EMMA,
Okay.
Emma. It's your brokerage account, and then you put money in it, how much ever money you need to buy the stocks that you want to buy, you put that in there. And then JMMB Moneyline, which is our online transaction system, you would get, you having set up, you'd get your credentials, log on to Moneyline, and you can put in all orders to purchase stocks or sell stocks right there. So it's really, really very simple and accessible. And of course, if you need somebody to walk you through the process, then you can contact us either via online or through email or give us a call. All of our contact details are on the website. So the key takeaway is that the stock market is a place where you would go to buy and, of course, sell your shares. You do so through a broker like JMMB. You would open your brokerage account, which you can do online with JMMB through our website, jm.jmmb.com. And that's how you get started. And then through our online transaction system, you do your buying, you're selling online from the comfort of anywhere with an internet connection, a nice secure connection, and you do it there. So that's a great way to kick things off. The other question that I had, Leo, so now we're talking about the stock market. We hear this thing about and we do have an app. We have JMMB Moneyline app, folks. Yeah. We've heard that message. Those of us who were here long enough here. When JMMB coming with the app? The app was launched in 2024. The app sell off, right? Remember, it is the only app in Jamaica that allows you to do comprehensive banking and investing, including trading stocks, buying and selling stocks in one app. The thing wicked, trust me. So once you're a JMMB client, if you know, you know. So, but jumping back into the topic now, Leo, stock market, because as we spoke, we also hear about this thing called junior market and main market. What is that exactly? What's the difference? Main market is for rich people and junior market is for poor people. It's an honest question that some people like, what is that?
All right. So the junior market really just represents smaller companies are usually listed on the junior market, while larger companies on the main market. Now, what you can actually have, and there are several instances of this. So, for example, Last M and Lasco distributors are two recent examples where they graduate from the junior to the main because these companies have been listed, they've grown, they've done well, and they actually apply and get listed over on the main market. So what the junior market just represents is a small to medium price enterprise is usually listed there. Now these companies, when they're listing, they can raise up to a maximum of 500 million Jamaican dollars, right? From in their IPO, which I guess we can discuss what that is later. But when they're doing that, that is what will happen, right? They put their shares out to the public and they say, hey, come and buy, and then they can't do more than 500 million, and then no, they'll be on the junior market. So in his recent history, you'd have companies raising like a 300 million or so and then listing on the junior market. So really, that's all it represents. It's the smaller companies which can graduate and become bigger companies and go over to the main market. Now, usually on the main market now, as you can understand, is that you just have these bigger companies. So this is, of course, where you'd have, like a Grace Kennedy's, those big companies that have been around for a while, are generating billions of dollars in profits. That's where you usually find them on the main market. So it's just really a size is the primary differentiator between main and junior market companies. Is just really a fraction of the size of the companies in terms of like how much revenues and profits that they generate, which usually reflects in the market capitalization of the company, which is a representation of the size of the company. Because I don't want to get too wonky here, but it's just a function of the amount of shares outstanding times the price per share, right? So when you multiply that together, so let's say a company have 1 billion shares outstanding, trading at $20 a share, then 20 times 1 billion, that's 20 billion. So that's the size of the overall company versus another one which have 1 billion shares outstanding, trading at $1, and that's $1 billion company. That's the market cap. So that's a representation of the total value of the company. Usually, the main market companies are larger on average. So, on average, you'd find some main market companies $150 billion market cap, while on the junior, you'll find a lot of them with 1 billion, 500 million in terms of the market capitalization of those companies. So really and truly, again, primary difference is the size of the companies.
Size.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's good to know because, so some people
Hmm.
hear the names and they're not quite sure what it is. So, again, just to summarize, you have the stock market is there, but there is the main market, the companies listed on the main market, those listed on the junior
Junior
market. And
market.
the only difference is that the junior market companies are just smaller and so
Hmm.
their size. And, we have to big up companies from both markets because you can earn great returns from
On both.
companies on the junior market as much as you can earn great returns from the bigger companies on the main market. Don't watch no size. I mean,
Yes.
either way, you still
Mhm.
have a stock or it's your share ownership in them. You're gonna say something, Leo?
Yeah, man, a key point to note, as you said that, about not watching the size. Funny enough, what can happen now, actually, because of the size, those smaller companies in general can grow a lot faster than the larger companies. Because as you can understand, if you have a company and the market cap, for example, is $300 billion, right? Its ability to grow, meaning every 10, so let's say the company, for argument's sake, generate $5 billion in profit. In order to generate a next 10% in profit, that's $500 million, right? Now, the Caribbean, Jamaica is fairly small. So the ability of a company of that size to grow is a bit difficult. So it kind of growing in line with GDP, some quarters or some years ahead, but on average, I'm kind of average out because it's kind of difficult to get that growth. When you have a smaller company now on the junior market, which is part of the reason why sometimes this is some extraordinary gains on the junior market, that company might be generating at start $10 million in profit. Them land two major contracts, then all of a sudden they're at 30. Now, nominally, is they're not that that's at the $500 million mark. However, percentage wise, that's a huge jump in profitability. So funny enough, a lot of times the junior market companies can do very well for investors. Now they do carry sometimes more risk. However, they can do very well. So again, they might play a very good part in a balance over a portfolio approach in terms of investing. But it's just basically a little but them tell. So you have to pay attention sometimes to these smaller companies. You can't just say, you know,
Yeah, them
I'm just going
small, so
on with
them
the big
not go
ones.
on with nothing.
Never,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, we don't
sometimes
look at
these
it that
small
way.
companies can do very well. So that's something to bear in mind too.
Exactly. And some popular
Mhm.
Jamaican companies are on the junior market. Companies like Honey Bun. I mean,
Yes.
whole heap of people buy Honey Bun products all the time, don't
Mhm.
realize that they're very much listed on the
Yeah.
stock exchange on the junior market. And them going on well. They're
Them
going
gonna
on well.
very,
I have
very
my shares in Honey Bun too. So and you say these companies, you
okay.
buy shares in them, and then as a consumer, you buy
Hmm.
their products, you're pouring back into the company that you own a piece
Awesome.
of. So it's
Yes.
really an awesome thing to do. There is
Hmm.
a popular question in the chat, and I want to acknowledge because everybody, what about those people who live overseas, who don't live in Jamaica? Can you open a JMMB brokerage account? You absolutely can.
Yes.
However, there are maybe some requirements in terms of the indicia that you would have to provide to open the account, right? So
Yes.
social security number and so on, because we have to recognize that as a financial entity, there are certain requirements, especially for persons who are overseas who wish to do business with financial institutions in Jamaica.
Hmm.
Very, very important. Things like your social security number will be needed, etc. But it's certainly possible, guys. Don't let that stop you. And again, we are online. You don't need to physically fly to Jamaica and walk into a JMMB branch to do that. Just go on our website, jm.jmmb.com, look for the area, open an account, and follow the steps to do that. And again, if you have any questions, then you can reach out to JMMB via email. Email is the best thing. If you're overseas, of course, if you don't want to make a call, that's fine because we do have telephone numbers. Again, go on our contact us page where you can see our telephone numbers where you can call from overseas. So there you go. For our overseas folks, you can join in the fun too. All right, not a problem. Okay, great, great, great.
Hmm.
So let's jump into the next question then, Leo, because so
Hmm.
we've level set, we've spoken about what is a stock. We've covered what is a stock market. We spoke about junior market versus main market, etc. So there are some people who are new to this stock investing thing, and they're asking themselves, how do I know that investing is in stocks is right for me? You know what I mean? Because this is a popular conversation, especially if you're on a platform like X, who was formerly Twitter. You see a lot of people talking about, yeah, man, you have to invest in stocks. How does someone know that investing in stocks is right for them?
All right, so one of the primary determinants would be your risk tolerance. So that's a function of your ability and your willingness to take risk. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're not willing to take. So if you put down $100 and you see that $100 turn into $99, you're panicking, you can't sleep, you can't eat, then stock investing is not for you, right? The thing is, with stocks, there is a chance that you put down 100 and it turns into $90. There's a chance that it turns into $80. There's also a chance that it turns into $200. So that means you have that volatility aspect. So that's the primary determinant. Now, what determines that for you? That can vary. So one of the things that can determine your risk tolerance is your investment horizon. So for example, if you're investing and you say, all right, I need the money next week, it's probably not for you. You want the money a month from now, it might not be for you also. So don't get me wrong, it's possible for a stock to move from $1 to $1.30. That's literally can happen. That's happened several times. So $1.30 tomorrow, However, there is a chance that it doesn't. So you don't want to put yourself in that position where you need the money and then you're taking it out at the worst possible time. So the primary determinant is that there's different factors that can determine that for you. One of the things that can determine that for you to also in terms of your risk tolerance is like your age. So for argument's sake, you're young, you just start working, you're in your early 20s, your ability to take risks is higher. This is an average, okay? You have some person that are 20 and they're not there to take risks, and that's fine. But I'm talking an average. So that your age might be something. Next thing on the opposite spectrum, you can understand you're close to retirement, you basically your ability to take risk is limited because your ability to recover from any losses or your time horizon you have, as you get older is reduced. So your ability to take risk is reduced. So a rule of thumb, this is one of the rule of thumbs that they use, one of the heuristics is 120 minus the age. So effectively what that is saying is that if you are under 20 or under 100% in stocks, and as you get older, reduce the allocation. But that's just a rule of thumb. But each individual has to kind of decide that for themselves. So it's just you kind of understanding where you are, what's the risk you're willing to take, understanding that. That's the primary determinant of whether or not you can invest in stocks or if it is for you. So it's your ability and your willingness to take those risks, to take risks.
I love
Mhm,
that. And, I
mhm,
just want to highlight, and I love the point that you made, and I love to highlight about, of course, the younger you are, that usually is usually advisable, of course, that you have to have your own individual conversation with a licensed
yes,
financial advisor.
mhm,
But usually, the younger you are, that usually is the time that is most recommended that you consider investing in stocks because, as you say, you're young, so you do
mhm.
have the truth is investing in stocks is really more of a long term,
Yes.
longer term kind of activity. So while you say
Mhm,
sometimes you could purchase a stock today and next week it goes up, and if you're able to sell it you can realize those gains, but
mhm.
that's not always the
Yeah, the
case.
case,
And we
yeah.
would want to set up, we would want to manage everybody's expectation
Expectation, yeah.
that it's a long game. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
buying it to see, well, how far, wait and see, and and
Mhm,
and get the maximum possible return over time. You're able to sell it, you
mhm.
realize the gains. So it's not a quick get. We don't advise a quick get
Quick,
rich
yeah.
scheme at all,
Yeah.
because folks will get disappointed. With people
Yes.
going, and then the price will go down, and they have a stroke because they took out the last dollar that they had to go buy
Mhm.
stocks, and we're like, no, that's not really how it works. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, very important point. I want to acknowledge the folks who are just joining us online, folks. So, we've covered so much. We've been having this conversation for almost half hour. We've really
Mhm.
covered quite a bit, just to highlight that this conversation is being recorded, as it always is. And once we finish this conversation, the entire recording of it will be available on the JMMB Group Jamaica's YouTube page, which is where you are now. No, it's important to note that because we are being recorded, if you missed anything, because there are some questions we've answered already, like we've already spoken about how to open your account, we've spoken about where you can do that, we've spoken about whether if you live overseas, how you can open a brokerage account, etc. We've covered all of that. There's a quick so
Mhm.
stay tuned, keep posted onto the live, but once it's over, you can go back and watch the entire episode, share it, and get anything you may have missed. Someone asked a really great question, Leo, about if they need whole heap of money to invest in stocks. So is rich people, only rich people must invest in stocks?
All right, so technically you don't. All right, so there's
Right.
several ways to get the exposure. So you can get the exposure directly, um, and you can get the exposure, for example, through a collective investment vehicle, for example, like a unit trust, right? Of course, a JMMB will offer that. So you can get the exposure that way. Now, you don't need a lot of money. So technically, you can start with a 25,000 JMB on the USD side, 200 USD to open the account. So it's not a lot to start with. However, um, you have to kind of be a little bit careful when you're working with that smaller, when you're working with smaller numbers, because one of the primary things you want to do when you're buying into equities. So let's say you do your assessment is for you. One of the primary things you want to do is that you want to diversify. Now, what that basically means is that you want to buy multiple different securities. Of course, the Jamaican adage, don't put all the eggs in one basket. We've heard it time and time again when you're growing up, and that applies also when you're investing. So what you don't want to do is that, for argument's sake, you have the 25 you open and you just buy one company and make it sit. Now, it's possible that that investment really pays off for you and you're doing all great and well. However, on average, though, that might not be the case. So what you want is that you want to spread out the investment. Now, your base, if you do that with a small amount of money, is going to be difficult. Now, if you take that same 25 and you 25,000, you buy a unit trust, for argument's sake, let's say an equity unit trust that has a lot of underlying equity exposure, you buy into that automatically gives you exposure to probably 30, 40 different stocks spread out, actively managed. And of course, it doesn't require that kind of effort on your part to, for example, keep up what's happening with the company, reading through financials, figuring out, all right, when do I buy, when do I sell, and all of that. All of that would be managed for you. So that's the benefit of that structure. So you get the diversification and you get the active management. Doing it yourself, I mean, I know some persons want to do that. You're younger, you're starting out, so you probably want to buy every month to do a little investment. I mean, that's fine. However, you just have to bear that in mind that doing it that way, though, you're not going to be able to diversify as well as you can. So you just have to understand that that carries inherently more risk because you don't have the benefit of having that broadly diversified portfolio. But yes, technically, you can start relatively small. You can start with a $25,000 and you can build up from there. So it's not a rich people thing. It's something that basically, if you're committed, you're willing to do it, you can. And as I say, you have multiple options. You don't have to just buy it directly. You can start small, buy into the unit trust, and as you get older, you have more disposable income, and then you say, all right, I want to diversify out and do my own thing, buy these individual names, and I can diversify my own portfolio, then that's perfectly fine too. But it's still up to you at the end of the day. You understand your risk tolerance. And if you're saying, I'm young, I just start work, I have 25,000, but I really want to buy into this particular company because I think it's going to be great. And then you buy into that, that's also fine. And then you diversify over time. That's also an option for you. You just have to know yourself, understand what your risk tolerance is, have that conversation with your wealth advisor to make sure, you're not having any blind spots there, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. It's not
Hmm.
just a rich people thing, just to be
Hmm.
clear, that you
Yeah.
really can get started ideally investing in stocks, opening your brokerage account with a JMMB with easily like a 25,000 Jamaican dollars. That's how you can get started. Or if you want to go a little bit smaller than that, there are unit trust options where
Hmm.
you can open a unit trust you could say has denominated, I like to call it, in equities, or have equities as or stocks as their underlying assets. So there are some people who say, look, I don't want to buy a stock in Grace Kennedy or buy a stock in somewhere else. I want to just buy a unit trust that has stocks as the underlying securities, and JMMB will do the buying and the selling of the stocks. And all I have to do is kind of just allow them to make the decisions of when to buy, when to sell. And I
Hmm.
enjoy the growth in the unit trust and benefit that way. So there is
Hmm.
something for everybody. If you don't want to go directly into investing in stocks, you can just invest in a unit trust that's denominated, you could say, in equities, or has equities as or stocks as the underlying asset, as is some somebody was talking about unit trusts that also are rooted in real estate. That's another option, but another
Yeah.
conversation.
Hmm.
There's someone in here too that asked a question, Leah. It's a great reminder. There are
Hmm.
some stocks denominated in US dollar versus J dollar, correct? And you get your
Yes.
dividends in US dollars. Yeah, right?
Yeah, man. So that's an option. There's few companies that are listed in US dollars, so it's not as much as you have listed in Jamaican dollars, but they do exist. So that gives you the option. Most of those companies do pay the dividends. The dividends that they pay are in US dollars when you own it there. So yeah, so you can get that exposure there.
Mm-hmm.
If you so choose, you can get that exposure, meaning buying Jamaican companies listed in US dollars. And then of course they pay those dividends in US dollars. That's also an option.
Right.
Hmm.
That's a great question. And then,
Hmm.
just to, there was another question here. I wanted to scroll back up about taking out a loan to invest in stocks.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's all right. So I hear all right. So I hear that point. However, those things carry additional risk.
Risk, yeah.
The
Yeah.
additional risk. So alright, so one of the things with investing, you always have this risk reward pair, meaning it's difficult for you to generate excess higher returns without taking additional risk. So the potential exists for you to get additional returns that way, but you're taking on additional risk. And as it always go, you need to properly understand what you're doing there, because if you take on a high interest loan for argument's sake and you say, I'm gonna buy this thing, and it doesn't play out as you expect, meaning you
Yeah.
don't get a big move, it can work against you.
Hmm.
Now I know that there's a lot of stories out there when it work out for a person. So I'm not saying that that never happens, that don't exist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's additional risks that come with that, and as it come, you have to understand what your risk tolerance is. Because if it
Right.
is the case that if it don't play out as you expect, that's gonna put you in a really tough spot. Then
Right.
it might not be the best play for you. So you have to kind of understand what you're getting into there. So it's not that,
Exactly.
yeah, man. So that, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so I get we get the point. And yes, in the converse, another question is like there are some people who or some places that offer loans that are backed by your shares in companies. That too,
Mm.
that is up to the financial institution to determine if they want to take on that level of
Level of
risk.
risk, yeah.
Because again,
Mm.
as we talk about with the stock market, stock prices can move, and you don't know when, you can't predict with any sort of accuracy when it will move, by how
Mm.
much it will move. And so that's why, all that additional risk is a delicate conversation. So
Decision.
so
Mhm.
yes, so very, very important. So
Mm.
Leo, let's keep moving now. So we've
Mm.
covered the basics. And what a stock is, a stock market, main market, junior market. How do we know that investing in stocks is right for me? So we wanted to get into now, how do I know now which stocks to buy? So for those people who have the stomach for risk,
Mm.
they have the 25,000 J to get started, and they're like, yeah, man, but how do I know which company stock I must buy? How do I make that decision? Could you give us some guidance?
All right. So, in general, what you want to do, you want to invest in companies that you know. Now, we're all busy. Now we now work in the financial space. For example, I particular would work in the financial space. So then would be a part of my job to be keep abreast of what's happening with the companies, the earnings, and all of that. That is not the majority. So, you're a teacher, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, that's not your day job, right? Your ability to do so is going to be limited, right? So, the best way, if you want to, would be to, for example, access like research pieces, reading up on the companies. So that's one way, but it can be quite time consuming and a bit technical. It's something that you can build up over time in terms of understanding what's going on. I would advise anybody to, even if you don't have the time to go into the day to day, but still give yourself a cursory understanding of what's happening, so you can have a more educated conversation with the advisor about what exactly it is you want and what exactly you're trying to avoid. However, I would say that's the better avenue, because other than that, I can tell you from experience in terms of your day job, looking through all of these numbers, it's a lot of work. Because remember, when when someone will say, for argument's sake, them always been hearing about this Grace Kennedy, they're going to go buy it, right? And it sounds on the first surface of it, it sounds like a good talking point, and it might be a good investment. However, it could be an issue that while Grace Kennedy is great, a lot of persons, for example, thinking that, and then they run up the price to a point where it doesn't make any sense anymore. And that's a valuation issue. And that's when you look at discounted cash flow and price to earnings ratio and all of these and all of these formulas and all of that. So what happens is that you might miss that. And then you end up, is that the company is the problem, is that the value that you're buying it at is too much. So it's almost like, for example, let's bring it let's bring it to something more relatable. So let's say you're buying a vehicle, right? Somebody comes to you and then say, hey, I have this very nice vehicle I'm gonna sell you. So let's go very nice. So let's say I'm selling you let's say I'm selling you some Porsche SUV for argument's sake. And I'm saying I'm selling this Porsche SUV and I'm selling it to you for the same Porsche SUV, two persons come. One person, you decide that you want a Porsche SUV. That's what you want, right? That's what you want, and that's what you want. And someone come to you, brand new, nothing wrong with it, and them say 10 million Jamaican dollars. You might say, well, that's a good investment. You might even say you've something wrong with it. But let's assume that nothing is wrong with it, right? Great. You want that. Now the same SUV, somebody said 100 million for the exact same SUV. But that's expensive. Why? Because you have an idea of the value and you're saying no, it's not worth. So that's what happens when you have an idea of a value. So it's not that the car is bad, because as we established, let's assume that everything is great with it. That the car is bad, is the price that you're paying for the vehicle is what create that disincentive. So you can apply that anyway. You can apply that with real estate, you can apply that with stocks. It's not necessarily about the property, it's not necessarily about the company, it's about the price that you're paying for it. Now, how you assess that value can be complicated, because that's again when you get into all sorts of discounted cash flow models and price to earnings, comparing it to peers. Really and truly, the majority of investors not going to necessarily have time to all of that. But it's very important that it's done, that you get a base understanding of what you're looking at to assess, the growth potential of the company, what risks are there, is the company too levered? So there's a whole lot of factors to consider. So for me, how I look on it, I think that's better for most investors to kind of either read up on the research reports, have a base understanding of what they're taking a look at, but basically majority of the heavy lifting, they'd have to kind of have that relationship with their advisor, with their broker, to get access to the research pieces, to get an understanding of the lay of the land. But yeah, it's a lot, because let's be real, if it wasn't, then it wouldn't be a job. If it wasn't,
That
if it
is it.
was simple, then it wouldn't be a job. Everybody, you just read a one paragraph and they say, this is a buy or sell, and it moves. But it goes a lot deeper than that, though.
Right. And
Mm,
all of what you're saying, and so I know some people probably listening there, and I know you saw my eyes cross because I'm like, oh my goodness. It's
mm,
one what you're saying really comes back to the point of, what? Investing in stocks is great for a lot of people. It
mm,
may not be for everybody, because I go back to the point about unit trust. Some people say, well, me not in the whole heap of research and read up and so on, and they may feel more comfortable getting into
mm,
a unit trust. But the
mm,
point of the matter is that if you do choose to invest in stocks, it means that you're going to have to be prepared to do your homework and to keep abreast of the performance of the companies that you choose to invest in, and certainly research the companies ahead of investing in them. And to
mm,
use your car analogy, you don't just buy a vehicle and jump in it and gone.
mm,
Some people
mm.
bring them mechanic if you look
And
under the
yeah.
hood and
Mm,
see if it a drive good. You take it for a test drive, you listen to see what sound a come out of it. It's the
mm,
same kind of thing when you're choosing to take your hard-earned money and invest and
mm,
buy shares in companies. It is, how is this company performing? You mentioned the research, and I just want to point to
mm,
people, because again, JMMB is a broker, and as
mm,
part of being a broker, we believe in empowering investors who want to invest in the stock market with information that they need to look into the companies that they want to buy shares in. And that too is available on the JMMB website, jm.jmmb.com. where if you look on that homepage, there is at the top of the homepage there some in the primary navigation bar that says Market Insights. And you go into Market Insights and you see information on research articles. There is a market color newsletter, not newspaper, newsletter that goes out. There's a dollars and good cents blog. The information is there, and it's incumbent on every investor to go and do your research, read up, understand, in addition to having the conversation. It's not a thing where, oh, well, I just go and call my advisor and she's gonna tell me which stock I must buy today and when to sell it. It's physically impossible for any brokerage company to do that, folks. Let me just give it a heads up. I've been in this investing thing even before JMMB. I mean, when you think of a JMMB that has hundreds of thousands of clients, if we were to get into the granular customizations of every single individual about when to buy and when to sell a stock, it's impossible. It's physically impossible. We have 1,000 staff and 200,000 clients. It's just the numbers don't math. But at the end of the day, though, we do provide the information, and you can do your research, get the initial guidance that you need. If you have any questions, you can ask, but it's incumbent on you to make sure that you educate yourself. I want
Yeah.
to hop on to another question, Leo. What is an
Mm.
IPO? This thing we hear about IPO all the time. What's an IPO, and what's the big deal with it?
All right, so IPO, right? That's an initial public offering. It's something that I touched on earlier. So what it represents is that when a company is private, so you have a company that's private, when it's initially coming to the market, offering shares to investors, that's when it does an IPO. So what usually happens is that the company release something called a prospectus, right? That details everything that the company about, what the company is about, the recent historical performance of the company, what they plan to do, the money, the growth plans that they have, all of that, right? And it highlights all of that for investors to decide whether or not they want to invest, right? So what it really is just that. It's just a company initially coming to the market, and when I say the market, I mean the general investing populace, and say, hey, we have these shares and we want you to buy these shares, invest in our company, and in return, this is what we're going to do. We plan to take it and we plan to grow the company. We plan to take the money and invest. We plan to take the money, pay down some debt, and that's what we plan to do with the company. So really and truly, that's what it reflects. Yeah, just a company,
Okay.
putting that shares out there.
Coming to the market for the very first time, offering their
Yeah.
shares. So every company that's listed on the stock exchange, junior market or main market, they would have had to go through that initial offer, right? No? Yeah?
Not every single one, but most of them.
Okay. Most
Because
of them.
some of them kind of go across the same thing, but most of them would have been done it that way. The majority of them, that's what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. There's a
Mm-hmm.
thing called an additional public offer as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is companies that are already listed. They come with an additional offer, mean they add more shares, I guess, to the pie for people to buy as well. That's what that is.
Yeah,
Additional
so
public offer.
public offer, yeah, so that's what that is. So it's a listed company, as you said, issue more shares and say, hey, we're issuing it for this money. Come and buy these shares. But it's a company that's already been listed. So
Right.
that's the primary differentiator there.
Right.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm,
Thanks for that. And I
mhm.
mean, there's a question reminder, guys. Thanks for joining us, acknowledging all the people still joining us on the live. Yes, this live is being recorded. Yay. So if you missed anything, you can go back and watch the recording once we're finished. It will be immediately available on the JMMB Group Jamaica YouTube channel, right? And so you're not going to miss a thing, but still come on in, tell folks to join. We still have a few more minutes left. So just wanted to highlight that was a question that someone asked. Also, I wanted to highlight, because we did speak about, because it came up again too in the chat, that we do have our market insights section on the JMMB website. And depending on, again, so many companies on the stock exchange and how quickly our research team is able to get to uploading the latest analysis that we provide, there is also the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website, folks. That is the website of Jamaica's local stock market. So every time a company makes a disclosure, meaning they publish their financial statements, they make announcements, they say whatever their plans are, they are obliged to disclose that information to the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and it is immediately put on their website so all investors have access to that information. So please, any company you're considering buying stocks in, you can also go to the Jamaica Stock Exchange website. You see copies of the company's annual reports where you see their financials, you see what the management says the company is doing, their future strategic plans. All of that is there on the Jamaica Stock Exchange website as well. So just to
Yeah.
highlight that for anybody who had that question.
Mhm.
Now, question now, Leo, because I know this is probably the number one question that a lot of people have. And first of all, usually the most popular question that people have is, so which stock I must buy? It's
All right. So
2025. We want to make some money. We're not really going to ask that question. Let me just
okay.
save you a little headache, Leo. We're not
Okay.
really answer that question. No, I'm going to
Okay.
explain why people before them name me in the comments is that,
Mm.
and if you're watching JMMB lives, for those of us who have been with us on this journey for the last several years, is that
Mm.
really and truly, again, investing in stocks is a personal activity, right?
Mhm.
The stocks that would probably be right for my portfolio may not be the same stocks that's right for Leo's portfolio, may not be right
Mm.
for Sheldon, may not be right for Natalie, may not be right for Michael. So we can't come on here with thousands of people watching this live stream from all over the world and say, everybody go and run and buy ABC Company Limited. That
Mm.
that don't work because we don't know everybody's situation. So that would
Yeah.
be irresponsible of us. But
Mm.
what we do, though, again, consistent with educating, is that we can give information, which is now the question I'm going to ask Leo, is that here we are in 2025, right?
Mhm.
And we're looking at the landscape of what is ahead on the Jamaican, the local, the international economy. We
Mm.
could give some insights into maybe where some opportunities could maybe
Mm.
possibly arise in certain
Okay.
industries based
Mhm.
on what's happening. So that is the question I'm going to ask you, Leah, because
Okay.
Leah looked like it was with sweat. Lord have mercy, Leah, you
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
answer that. No, man,
Yeah.
we're good with that.
That
So
that's
based on the
good.
trends, so let me just give you
Mm.
back the question. And so based on the trends that you've
Mm.
seen, you know, our research team at JMMB looking down the pipe at what 2025 may have in store, because stuff will
Mm.
change. What
Mm.
industries do you see, I would say, the greatest growth potential for investors that they should consider doing their research into and looking into, possibly looking into companies in those industries, perhaps?
So, all right. So, broadly speaking, one of the primary things that helps to drive stock market valuations is interest rates. Now, right now, we've seen some cuts coming out of the BOJ, and we expect some more cuts in 2025. As those interest rates come down, that's beneficial to the broader market. However, certain companies tend to would benefit more from a lower interest rate policy. So, for example, financial companies, they're likely to be big beneficiaries there because lower interest rates can help drive loan growth in terms of more persons taking loans, for example, at lower rates. One, it can help these companies to lower the cost of financing that they're experiencing. So that can be a boon for them, meaning higher net interest income margins. And also will push up the value of the assets that are on a lot of these companies' books. So that's also beneficial for them. So those companies, for example, are a key set that can benefit. But in general, the market will benefit from lower rates, but certain things that can tend sectors that will tend to outperform consumer discretionary. So those are the companies now that would benefit from persons having more disposable income. Because they can understand interest rates come down, that will help to drive, for example, economic growth. Persons would have more income, and their propensity, their ability to spend on these discretionary items will increase. So that can be a boon for them. So those are the kind of companies. Then you have also, for example, the real estate sector. Those companies can benefit also because you can understand as rates come down, person's ability, for example, to finance the purchase of a home via a mortgage or their that's helpful. But also what's helpful is that companies that already have real estate, for example, in their book, the value of those real estate can increase at a faster rate. because as you can understand, as there's more demand for real estate than any real estate that they already have in a rental property or any property that they're planning to sell in terms of development and sell it, they can sell it at a higher price. So that's also beneficial. So those are some of the sectors that we think have a lot of potential because as rates come in, that can be very beneficial for them. So those are a few of the sectors that we're seeing that we think can have some good potential for 2025. Mhm.
Okay, so that's the financial sector, perhaps, real estate sector, perhaps. We said consumer products. Am I?
Consumer discretion, yeah. But
Yeah.
consumer part, but consumer discretionary. So these are more the companies that when persons have more disposable income, they're likely
Mm-hmm.
to spend and buy these products in terms of their
Right.
basis of these products increases.
Right. So
Yeah.
those are the three. There was more. I missed any? I
No,
just tried to.
that's the
Those
reason.
three main ones. Great. No, no,
Yeah.
I just making sure because I was because Marty did taking a note
Mhm.
in my head. So
Okay.
again, so those are the industries. So it's
Mm,
incumbent on folks now to go
mm,
onto the Jamaica Stock Exchange website and literally look through the listing of companies on the exchange, and you'll see which industries those companies reside in. And then again, now you do your research
research.
into the
Mm,
performance of those companies to assess whether they are worthy of your hard-earned money to invest in, and then you do your research, read about them through their annual report and their other filings that are there on the stock exchange to make a decision, and of course, have a conversation with a licensed advisor.
mm,
If it, I know some folks, there is going to be a link that's available where folks can have their information. What you can do is you can call 876-998 JMMB is our local number, but there it is flashing across the screen, or you can send an email to info@jmmb.com. Feel free to call because we do have financial advisors who are available to speak to you by phone. If you go on our website, again, we spoke about all of this, guys. We're just wrapping up now, getting into the final stretch. That if you
mm.
go on our website, jm.jmmb.com, you can open your brokerage account to get started in buying stocks through JMMB as your broker. Some folks do that. We welcome you. Happy to have you as part of the family. Once you do that, you can buy and sell your stocks online or through JMMB Moneyline, which is our online transaction system, which we also have the JMMB Moneyline app. You see somebody's here. Yeah, yeah, man, the app, it's wicked. It's awesome. You can invest. You can do your banking transactions, your investing transactions, including buying and selling stocks on it from anywhere in the world. We covered that as well. So again, this is recorded, so you can go all the way back to the beginning of this conversation and get all of that information. It's available on our YouTube channel, JMMB Group Jamaica. There was a quick question here, Leo, about
Mhm.
dividends.
Yeah.
What is that exactly, and how
Mm.
do I mean? Do I when do I get dividends? People can hear this thing about
Yeah.
if you own stocks, I will get dividends. Is that so?
Mhm.
What is that?
All right. So every company doesn't pay dividends. But what the dividends represent is that the dividends represent a payment to shareholders from the company. So, what will happen from time to time, you have a company, and let's say the company, does well, generates the profitability, right? And the company said to each shareholder, for argument's sake, they're going to pay them $1 per share. Some companies have this on clockwork, meaning that every quarter you get in this even around the same time, right? So some of them have it on clockwork. Some of them more sporadic, they kind of pay when they can, and then some of them doesn't really pay dividends, right? Some of them pay and then them stop and then them start again, right? So it can be varied between the companies for different reasons. A company not paying a dividend doesn't necessarily represent a bad investment because what can happen sometimes is that a company is not paying dividends because they're reinvesting in the company because they're growing so fast. So remember, when a company pays a dividend, what effectively is happening is that money is leaving the company going to investors, which is not a bad thing, but that can happen. Now, that's money that the company can't reinvest in growing its operation, right? And so what happens is that sometimes a company make a decision that they're not going to pay any dividends for now, grow the company, and then maybe the next 5 years now, after the company is grown and grown and grown and grown, we're going to start paying now what can happen at that point is that you can start getting some really good dividends. So it's almost like they haven't been doing it for a while, they accumulate that value, and then they start paying it down. So I mean, really and truly, that's all it represents. It's just payments to shareholders. That's really the core issue of what it represents. It's a good way. That's one of the ways. So the two main ways it makes money from stocks are returns from stocks, capital gains, meaning you buy a stock at $1, it goes to $2. That's $1 in capital gain, that price appreciation, and dividends. Right. So you own a stock, paid $1 for it, it's paying you 20 cents a share. That's another way that you make money from a stock.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And
Mm,
again, for those folks who want to know about companies that pay dividends, their history of paying dividends, their dividend policy, again, all of that information would be on the Jamaica Stock Exchange website as well, and the information pertaining to those companies. So again, it's
mm,
part of doing the research. There are so many companies listed. If we were to
yeah.
list out everyone and who pay dividends and when the dividends pay, unfortunately, we would have to go beyond Leo's bedtime.
Yeah.
But it's bless your heart, Leo. I know that
Yes.
you are. I see me. I'm muting my mic because I'm coughing and sputtering. I have my water right here, so I guess maybe something is
Hmm.
going around. So,
Hmm.
Leo, I'm really grateful for this conversation. Let's wrap because I know a lot of people are joining, but the thing is we've really covered a lot of most of the questions. So I'll just double back and let's summarize real quick. So again, first of all, folks, thank you for joining JMMB Elevate 7.0. This is our first installment of it, our first session of it, and we're happy to have you join us. It is our 7th year of Elevate. This is the first of 4 nights of JMMB Elevate, where each night we're going to be looking at a different topic pertaining to personal financial management, because we're going to be winning in 2025 and beyond with our finances. And we're here to give you the information that you need to get you started, right, in this forum. So tonight we would have covered investing in stocks. Let me just do a quick plug before I summarize what we've discussed here. A quick plug: please come back and join us tomorrow night, same time, 8 p.m. Jamaica time, where we'll be talking about budgeting and debt management with another awesome JMMB team member. She is Camille Stair. A lot of you may know her from previous lives and JMMB events. So we're talking about budgeting and debt management tomorrow, 8 p.m. Jamaica time. So join us right back here on all of JMMB's platforms, particularly on YouTube. I know a lot of people love YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. Please join us, or of course follow us on social media as well, to know what our sessions will be for this week, because we'll be back on Wednesday, we'll be back on Thursday. So we're very busy this week because we're winning in 2025 with our finances. So tonight we had Leo, who is investment manager with JMMB, and Leo would have been sharing with us about investing in stocks. So the session was recorded. If you missed any part of it, you can watch the entire recording. We've been here for about an hour. So we would have covered everything from what is a stock, how you can open your own stock brokerage account with JMMB right from the comfort of your own home. We spoke about the different, what is the stock market, the difference between junior market and main market. We spoke about where you can get information to do your research. We also spoke about the fact that if really investing in stocks directly is something you're not quite ready to do yet or willing, because yes, it does take your time to do your homework and it does involve some amount of risk. You could consider unit trust solutions, which JMMB also has, and you can open that account online as well. In the unit trust, a unit trust solution that has stocks as the underlying asset security that gets you your feet wet as well. And we will do the legwork in terms of when to buy, when to sell. But there's some people like to go directly in it. We spoke about the fact that it's not a one size fit all. There are many companies on the stock exchange, and which companies you buy and sell, we wouldn't be willing to just say, okay, everybody go out and buy ABC Company Limited, because it is a personal thing. So you'd have to do your homework. We did, however, touch on the 3 sectors where we believe there could be opportunities, where we see growth opportunities, perhaps possibly occurring for companies who operate in that sector, based on what we see coming down the pipe with the Jamaican economy and the international national economy in 2025. So we covered quite a bit. We spoke about what's a dividend, what's an IPO. And again, we also spoke about the fact that how you can get started. So again, you can call us in 876-998-JMMB. I see somebody saying when I call, they ask me for account number. Say, hello, I don't have an account number. I am new. I want to talk to somebody because I am new, please. So just tell them it's not a problem. Tell them you'd like to speak to a licensed financial advisor to talk about how you can get started investing in stocks through JMMB, and they will put you through to the right person or take the time to get your number and call you back at a time that's convenient for you, mutually convenient as well. There are some people who like to come into branch, and we don't knock that. There is a way to schedule an appointment. If you go on the jm.jmb.com website, there's a link there too to schedule an appointment, where you can schedule an appointment to visit your nearest JMMB branch to sit down and have a conversation again with an advisor. Some people prefer to do that instead of sit down and wait and watch. They prefer to just schedule an appointment. We'd facilitate that too. So there's no excuse, folks, for anybody to get started. We spoke that this is not a rich people thing. You can get started invested in stocks, open your brokerage account with easily 25,000 Jamaican dollars. There are a few listed stocks that are denominated in US dollars. Some people like to do that as well. That's also possible. And of course, there is many ways to just skin the cat. So folks, reach out to JMMB. Check out our description box under this live for any additional information. And again, folks, we are here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Jamaica time, talking about the whole matter of budgeting and managing debt. And it's just as important a topic as investing in stocks. So feel free to join us. Anybody who missed this live, feel free to join us tomorrow, 8 p.m. We will be here again. That session will be recorded too, but spread the word. Tell your family, your friends, your co-worker, your neighbor that we're winning in 2025 with our financial goals. JMMB is the company to support you, to give you the basic information to get you started, and to show you how you can connect with us offline. Leo, we want to thank you and big you up, because we know you're not feeling 100% well. You get a new year bug to bite you, but we are so appreciative of your time and your expertise. Guys, if you know Leo also from time to time represents JMMB on Kalila Reynolds' show, Taking Stock, on a Tuesday. Sometimes you'll see Leo's face there, but we have him here on a JMMB live stream tonight, and we're grateful for him. Leo, happy 2025. Happy New Year to everybody who has joined. And we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow, Tuesday night. That's Tuesday, the 21st of January, 8 p.m. Jamaica time, where we'll be back with another JMMB expert talking about budgeting and debt management. But until then, you can watch the recording of this episode. Stay safe. And again, thank you, Leo. Thank you to the marketing team for putting this all together. And we see you again tomorrow night. Cheers. Bye,
All right, take care,
everybody.
everyone. Yeah, man.